Hello everybody, Michael here for another episode of the Deck Tech Doctor. This deck is brought to us by EkkernTV on YouTube, and definitely thank you for bringing me his deck. For his deck, he is doing sort of a black-white deck that I think needs a little more focus. I think that was the main problem that I noticed in this deck. If you look in the description, he primarily wants to keep pumping out just as many Stallers as an aggro deck can pump out threats, and to just dirtle until he can get out a Blood Baron. I think this is a good strategy, but I don't think just trying to match aggro deck's creature count with something like Black White is the way to go. Playing Rakdos aggro or something like that, I think, or even Gruul aggro, I think they're going to be able to beat down through your guys a lot faster than you can theirs, and you're just going to keep losing creatures while they'll keep growing their board state. I think if you're playing black and white, there's really no reason not to play removal. You are running 4 Heroes Downfall, but that absolutely is pretty much the only removal you have in this deck. You need Devour Fleshes, you need Doom Blades, you need Dark Betrayals in the sideboard, or vice versa. You need Last Breaths. You need just so much. You have access to so much removal, and that's what this deck really lacks, is just more removal if you want to deal with those aggro decks early on, because that's what you need to do. Once you get aggro decks down to a point where they just it's hard for them to produce threats without getting removed, you pretty much win the game there, and they'll probably just concede. You might not even have to play Blood Baron. I like Blood Baron just sort of as a card to sort of protect from white and black, and the lifelink is nice. I think there might be better cards to play out there. Even just running Desecration Demons can generally sometimes win you the game. So what might be a fun way to play this deck is possibly keep the low cost creatures, and then just keep a playset of Desecration Demon as your 4-drop, and hopefully through that you can win the game. But I definitely think you need to make a lot more room for removal in this deck. Removal is definitely what this deck is lacking. And Spear of Heliod, I think, is a nice card for an aggro deck and stuff like that. But I'm not sure. You could definitely experiment with this type of deck. I would probably just keep it to a 2 of, or maybe even a 3 of, because you definitely want it out early on. But as well as Whip of Erebos, I don't think you need Whip of Erebos. I mean, it gives your creatures lifelink, sure, but I think if you're running Grey Merchants, you can just use that to get back in the game. And I would definitely recommend getting something like Underworld Connections. Getting some card draw is really imperative, and card draw is just so underrated, and it's just so amazing. Just having the ability to draw an extra card is awesome, and can potentially draw you an answer that you need for a threat that's on the board, or just up your board state and to a point where you can just win the game. So that's why card draw is just really useful, and drawing an extra card each turn, or possibly more if you're running more than one Underworld Connection, is really good. And but yeah, it seems creature count. You just need to cut down the amount of creatures you have. I know you are trying to stall against an aggro deck, but that's where removal comes in, and you definitely need those things such as Last Breath and just those early low cost removals, Devour Fleshes, keep their board state down on turn 1, turn 2, or whatever, and being able to play stuff like Desecration Demon on turn 4 definitely forces them to either sacrifice creatures, or just, they're taking 6 damage a turn. And if you're playing an aggro deck even anyways, Desecration Demon is a big enough body that unless they have a lot of pumps, they can't get around it. So getting 4 Desecration Demons, I think, is really nice to ensure that you can get one on turn 4 or 5, and as early as possible. Like, you're running a lot of sort of random cards that I don't think help your board state, and they're just going to slow down your overall game plan. I think just getting more removal in this deck would be the best way to go if you want to actually deal with aggro decks. But yeah, otherwise, the cards you can keep in. I don't like Banisher Priests in this type of deck. I don't think you really need it. And again, this is where removal comes in. Blood Baron or Viscopa, if you want to play around that, I think that's fine. Keeping 2 of, or maybe make it a 3 of, is perfectly fine. Boros Elite, I would get rid of. I mean, you're not playing an aggro deck. I don't think you need to. And, if you are playing against an aggro deck, you're not going to be able to block with it because it's just going to be staying a 1/1. It only gets the +2/+2 when it's attacking. So unless you're playing an aggro route and you're the one trying to make more threats than your opponent, Boros Elite isn't going to be useful to you at all. Desecration Demon, keep it in. Desecration Demon is just too amazing. It's just really, really strong card for the 6/6 for 4, and the ability to force your opponent to make some pretty harmful decisions to themselves is very, very nice indeed. It's sometimes a dead draw depending if they can get those threats on the board and not have to worry about sacrificing creatures to swing around you, but that's one of the drawbacks to the card, but it's one of the very small drawbacks. Fiendslayer Paladin, I don't think you need in your main board. You can play it in the sideboard as, a way to play against Mono Black or Rakdos or something like that, just to protect from burn and stuff like that. But otherwise, Fiendslayer Paladin, I don't think you need. You can make more room for Doomblade, stuff like that. Just more removal, Underworld Connections. Grey Merchant, I don't think you need a 4 of. You definitely don't want it in your opening hands, and you don't want to see it, at least till turn 4, or by turn 4 at least. So, I don't think you want it in your early draws either, because there's no way you're going to be able to ramp into it, and you're not going to be able to play it till at least turn 5 or 6 anyways. And you'll definitely want to be able to play Desecration Demons, Underworld Connections to get that devotion count up. You can play stuff like Tormented Hero as one drop, as one drops or whatever, and well, maybe not. Never mind. There's not enough heroic triggers for that in this deck, but I think you definitely need to sort of reevaluate your creature base and sort of make it a little bit more stable. It's just sort of a little bit too random right now. And you got a lot of cards that don't really work together. High Priest of Penance, I actually like. I think it's a fun card to play with, and it definitely allows you to get rid of enchantments they have, or things like that if it is dealt damage. So you can always use it as a chump blocker in addition of destroying one of their creatures on the once it gets destroyed, or just getting rid of enchantments, weapon artifacts, stuff like that. It can get rid of anything that's non-land. So, of course, anything that doesn't say indestructible on it either. So it can't get rid of Gauze or something like that, but at least it can get rid of big creatures. I think keeping High Priest of Penance in is nice. And it is nice against the aggro deck because you can 2-for-1 them. Obzedat Ghost Council, I like it in conjunction with Whip of Erebos, but I mean, unless you get more removal in this deck, it's really rare you're going to actually be able to have a chance of playing Obzedat, and especially if you're only having one of, it's going to be rare you're going to actually see it. And I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact on the game. You can generally win games through stuff like Desecration Demon and just Grey Merchanting them after that for a nice chunk of damage and getting some life back, but Obzedat, I think you need to have better cards to actually play around it a little bit more. And yeah, so I don't think you need it in this deck. So you got some random cards in here. Precinct Captain just as a one of. I think it's something you want really aggressively in an aggressive deck because you want it out on that turn 2. So keep getting it a 4 of is sort of what you need if you actually do want to play it. Keeping a 1 of is just a little bit too random. Like you're probably only going to see it later on in the game, and by that point you've either won, or you're close to winning, or they're close to winning, or they won. And the 2/2 first strike, getting those tokens out there, that's something that you want to build over time, and you want to be able to do that early on. And just having it turn 7 or 8 is not going to make any difference in the game, in my opinion. It's just going to not be a useful card to draw into, and there's just better cards to draw out there. Even a removal by that point is much better than a Precinct Captain. Rakdos Cackler as well. I think there's better 1-drops you can be playing in something like this. It can't block, so it can't stop the aggro, and you're not playing an aggro deck anyways. So I unless you want to switch up your strategy and play more of an aggro route, don't bother keeping stuff like Boros Elite in or Rakdos Cackler, because those aren't going. Like Rakdos Cackler can't even block. Boros Elite doesn't block very well, and they're just he just turns into a chump blocker, and people just swing through Rakdos Cackler. So I don't think that these types of cards fit in this type of deck. It looks like you're trying to play more of a mid-range type thing if you want to play stuff like Blood Baron and Desecration Demon. Rakdos, no, Soldier of Pantheon. Soldier of Pantheon I like as a one drop. It's definitely a solid one drop. Having protection from multicolored is amazing. You can just chump block with it all day against really, really large multicolored creatures, and it's has the bonus of gaining a life each time your opponent plays a multicolored card. And it being a 2/1 for one, it can get some pretty nice aggression early on, but still has the ability to block better than something like Boros Elite or Rakdos Cackler. So yeah, I think I think this is a start, but I think you need to be a little bit more specific on your strategy, and I think you need to definitely get more removal in this deck, and Underworld Connections. I think shifting more to a mid-range type route and playing around Blood Baron and Desecration Demon with maybe a couple of Grey Merchants is just as finishers is the way to go, and keeping some early cards in. I think you need to find a little bit more. I think you need to have better early choice cards, whether it be just low cost removal for the early game or more cards such as Soldier of the Pantheon that are more relevant to the deck and at least are still low cost so you can get them out early. And then probably upping the land count. You have 8 play and tapped lands. I think that's a little much. I would rather make it a playset of shock lands instead. I mean, you are going to be paying life, but including stuff like Thoughtseize in your deck is really, really nice. You are having a budget of probably upgrading no more than $20 to $50 right now. I think if you're going to that route, the better way to upgrade this, I mean, Shocklands are expensive, Thoughtseizes are expensive, Desecration Demon's pretty expensive, but I mean, if you already have 3 of them, I mean, I don't know if you already have these cards or not, but Desecration Demon is definitely something that's really, really nice. I mean, you could test it out with just 3 of. I think that would be enough to sort of ensure that you can get it by turn 4 or 5 to play it right away. But I think your main problem with this deck is inconsistency. There's a lot of random cards in your creature base and just overall not enough removal. And Brave the Elements is alright, but I think playing something like God's Willing would be a better thing in this situation because at least you can protect certain things such as Desecration Demon, because just something like Desecration Demon can win you the game easily. So but you definitely need more removal in there, and a lot of the removal such as Doom Blades, Dark Betrayals, stuff like that is just, they're cheap, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be including those. Devour Fleshes, stuff like that. Last Breaths in the white. You can exile things. Keeping some tears in there, even in the sideboard, wouldn't be a bad idea, just for those mirror or slight mirror matchups where you can remove things like Underworld Connection, stuff like that. But yeah, I think focus is their main problem here. But a lot of the stuff in the lower mana curve, so your 1, 2, and 3 drops, I think is the main area you need to focus on, and the main area you need to sort of adjust things. Keeping a couple of Grey Merchants in there, keeping your Desecration Demons, keeping those 2 Blood Barons, I think is just fine. But the Precinct Captains, Rakdos Cackler, Soldier Pantheon, Obzidot, Fiendslayer, Paladin, Boros Elite, and Banisher Priest are the cards I think you need to sort of try and find some better suited cards for your strategy, as well as definitely make more room for your removal. Spear of Heliod I think you can experiment with. I think that's just fine leaving it in there. It gives you another way to remove cards as well if they deal damage to you. Whip of Erebos, I don't think you need it. I think you can make room for better things, but maybe just including, maybe you can experiment with it. I mean, it is 2 devotion towards your Grey Merchant, but at the same time, I think there's just better things you could be playing. Especially stuff like Pack Rat is another strategy you can sort of go with if you happen to get those out early on. You can really do some beating. So yeah, I mean, it's a good start. I think you just need to be a little bit more focused, and also just definitely get some more removal in there, because you're playing black-white, you have just access to a whole whack load of removal, and removal is definitely something that ruins aggro strategies. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you again for EkkernTV on YouTube for sending me his deck, and definitely hope you guys start sending me more decks. I definitely enjoyed looking at all the decks that people have sent me, and hopefully people enjoy the stuff that I've uploaded so far. So thank you again for watching, and have a great day.